Civilization 7 is bringing some huge changes to an old formula, and one of the biggest changes is definitely the cities and how to grow your empire. So let's have a deep dive at this and have a look on how it works. And the first thing we have to talk about is the difference between a town and a city, because when you are sending out your settlers to settle at a certain position, yes, they do still exist, they will become a town first. And the town is very different. You don't have a build queue there. All your production will be transformed automatically into gold and then be sent to you. And the town is not doing anything besides of creating a small border and does grow. And when it did grow enough and reaches a threshold, you can actually change the focus of the town. You can see that right now here in the background. Those are all the different focuses you can choose from, also depending on some of the eras, of course, because, well, factory town doesn't exist in the antique. Duh, right? But those are the changes you can do to a town, and then they will specialize on certain aspects which will help your empire. But when you decide that it is time that this town is becoming a city, you can do that at any point. But what is important to note is that towns do not count towards the city cap. Yes, there is now a city cap in Civilization 7, and when you are going beyond it, which you can do, then you will hit by some major diminishing returns, especially when it comes to the happiness. Like towns and cities will get really pissed really quickly at you, and that will have some huge repercussions. So you might want to stay in that city cap, and you want to make sure that when you transform your town into the city, that is the right choice to do. But what happens when you have a city? How does that change? Well, let's have a quick look back at Civilization 6. When you are looking at how to build your cities and how to grow your empire, there are three ways of doing it. First is sending out workers and building tile improvements, right? The second one is by just putting down districts, which would then give you bonuses on culture, knowledge, military, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, there are the buildings themselves inside the city center. And in Civilization 7, that is going all out of the window and has been basically transformed into one thing. Yes, you heard that right. You have basically only one way now on how to grow your city. So, yes, naturally, the workers are gone, and your city is now sprawling outwards from the city center, and that's where you will build all your buildings. So, what will happen is when you can expand your city, you can choose a tile. That tile will become a district. And then you have two building slots in that district, and you can choose what you want to put there. And there can be a tile improvement, right? Like a mine, which is then mining the iron, or it can be a university, which will give you research, or, well, you put both of them into the district because you have two building slots. And it doesn't really matter how you combine those. Now, there will be, of course, an adjacency bonus, which is rather interesting. They're bringing that back. But also, the good news is they have streamlined this as well. And you don't need an adjacency bonus anymore, which is stacking. So you don't need to build a university, another university, and another university to get like a stacking adjacency bonus. You can just build a university, a military camp, and then a tile improvement, and they will still gain and create adjacency bonuses. So that has been a little bit streamlined. But what also exists is basically error specific and error SIF specific buildings. What is that supposed to mean? So every civilization has their own special buildings, right? And when you put them together into one district, they will become unique quarters. So they basically, well, melt together and create a new building. Yes, they do the fusion dance, and then they become the new building, which will give you even more adjacency bonuses and even more perks, right? So you want to look out for that. Something which is also back is your specialists, right? So you can still send them into certain districts, and then they will produce more bonuses on that tile. Another thing which they are, well, introducing is now the test of time. I talked about this in my previous video, the big reset. You can find the video description down below and the link to that video in the video description. That's what I wanted to say. And you should definitely watch this. But what it basically does is there are buildings now which are ageless, and there are other buildings which are, well, not. What does that mean? Well, when the building is ageless, it's pretty much the same thing, right? You're putting down the building and it would just do its thing for the end of time. When a building is not ageless, that means whenever you are switching between the ages, this building is becoming outdated and you have to upgrade it or replace it with something else. And yes, you can now paint over the buildings in the districts. So if you at some point decide that you don't really want a certain building there anymore, you can just put something else there. It just takes a little bit of turns, right? But back to the ageless thing. So when a building is not ageless, you have to upgrade it. And let's say you have built a marketplace here, and that marketplace is making you money. You are going into the next age, and that building is now slowly crumbling. So that means you have to upgrade it with a bazaar, which will be the next evolution of it. And as long as you are not doing that, you're not getting adjacency bonuses, and even the production of that building itself is slowly falling apart. So you want to upgrade your non-ageless buildings as fast as possible before they are literally falling apart, right? Another thing they have reintroduced but changed quite a bit are the warehouses. You probably still know them from the previous Civ games, which were buildings in your city, like the granary, you can see here in the background, right? And the granary was always giving you food. Now the granary is still giving you food, but differently. You can see it that it will now give you +1 food on farms, plantations, and pastures. And the good news is they don't have to be adjacent to the granary, right? You can have the granary somewhere completely else in the city and your farm somewhere completely else in the city, and you will still get the 1+ food. And that goes for all the other warehouses, which is a kind of cool addition, I think. Now, the last but certainly not least thing we have to talk about is wonders. Yes, the wonders are back, and they are taking up 2 building slots in the district. So yes, you can only build 2 buildings or wonder in the district, so you have to choose. And it will also give you massive adjacency bonuses, plus it would do its special thing a wonder does. But I want you to think for a second. What is the most annoying, the most infuriating thing about building a wonder? Yeah, that's right. You're not building the wonder because somebody else is finishing it 1 turn before you do. And well, I have some good news and some bad news there. The bad news is it's still there. That still can happen. The good news is if you have your advisors on, I should probably do that in the future. Anyways, if you still have your advisors on, they can now warn you that if you have already met a civilization previously and they are already building the wonder you want to build, they will inform you about it. So like, hey, boss, look, Egypt has already been building the pyramids for 10 turns. Do you really want to start the production on the pyramids? And then you can make the decision on your own, of course, because if you still have faster productions than the others, you might finish that before them. But at least you are now getting a warning if you have met this civilization before. If you don't, then you don't know about it, and it can still happen with the usual, well, somebody just finished it before you. But those are the biggest changes when it comes to growth for your civilization and, of course, your cities. This is a big change, I know. Let me know what you think about it down below in the comments. I would appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. And also, if you're new to the channel, you love strategy games, you came to the right place, because that's what we are focusing on here, and I would appreciate if you might consider to subscribe. With that said, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe. I see you next time.